Welcome to Bad Things. In this video, we will give you evidence and little known facts that nearly 30 years after the trial would have put Simpson behind bars for life. Reason number 1. 62 cases of domestic violence. Simpson married Nicole Brown on February 2nd, 1985. Brown was forced to sign a prenuptial agreement by Simpson and was prohibited from working while married. In her journals, she said that being financially dependent on Simpson made her hesitant to report the extraordinary amount of domestic abuse she was a victim of. These cases while married were meticulously recorded by Brown. The staggering number of cases numbered 62 incidents, with only 8 being reported. Not all these cases were behind closed doors, and many of them were in front of family and friends, and as brazen as in the full view of the public. This evidence shows that Simpson was not averse to violence against his wife. Case number 63 would be the last. Reason number 2. Straight from the horse's mouth. During an episode of rage, people may say things they don't mean. In Simpson's case, saying things that would implicate him before, during, and after the trial became run-of-the-mill and at times very insensitive. Although hearing some of these threats are from third parties, we cannot discredit them outright, as what was said came to life. Brown had told one of her friends that during an incident, Simpson had said, "I'll kill you and get away with it because I'm OJ Simpson." This is not the first time he threatened to kill her. Most of her journal entries contain those exact words. "If the knife is rusted, I can't be busted." This was Simpson's reaction after being told a knife was found at his old residence by construction workers in 1998 and was being tested by authorities for DNA. Although this evidence is from third parties, Simpson takes the cake by actively collaborating and accepting money for the ghost-written "If I Did It," in which Simpson puts forth a description of how he hypothetically would have committed the murders. Simpson at no time or action showed any real remorse for what had happened to the 2 victims. Reason number 3. We have a runner. Being accused of murder must take a huge toll on your psychological mindset. Running from the authorities screams of guilt. On June 17, 1994, detectives recommended that Simpson be charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. Simpson was to hand himself over at Robert Kardashian's, a family friend and one of Simpson's lawyers, home. When arriving at Kardashian's home, the police found that Simpson and their former teammate had fled and were on the run. The ensuing low-speed chase of the white Bronco they fled in would attract a live TV audience of 95 million people and throw the OJ Simpson case into the world spotlight. After eventually surrendering $8,000 in cash, a change of clothing, a loaded .357 Magnum, a United States passport, family pictures, and a disguise kit with a fake goatee and mustache were found in the Bronco. Simpson knew that there were vast amounts of evidence and historical violence towards one of the victims to implicate him in the murders and tried to evade arrest. Reason number 4. DNA doesn't lie. One of the most contentious issues in the Simpson trial was the DNA evidence given by the prosecution. DNA evidence was in its infancy in 1994. The first case to use DNA as evidence was 7 years earlier and wasn't fully understood by the public, Simpson's defense team, and most importantly, the 12 jurors responsible for a verdict. The DNA evidence was complicated and became tedious to the jurors as over 100 exhibits were being presented. Jurors had to try to process technical DNA terminology for 8 hours a day over 9 weeks. It was so complicated that Simpson's defense team barely recognized its implications and argued with a blanket response that the DNA was either contaminated or planted by the police because of the racial tendencies of the LAPD at the time. DNA evidence against Simpson is damning and includes 1. The killer dropped blood near shoe prints at the scene of the crime. This blood drop was one of the same type as Simpson's, a 1 in 9 billion chance. Blood drops matching Simpson were also found at 8 different locations at the crime scene. 2. 4 drops of blood found in Simpson's home matched Simpson's type. Blood on socks found in Simpson's home matched Nicole's. The black glove found on Simpson's property had no less than 10 DNA markers of Simpson, Brown, and Goldman. 3. The infamous Bronco had 12 markers of DNA consisting of Simpson's and Brown's. The most damning of these was a bloody impression of a size 12 Bruno Magli shoe. When Simpson was asked if he owned any pairs of this brand, his reply was, "I would have never worn those ugly-ass shoes." He was immediately caught in his lie as pictures surfaced of him wearing the shoes to an event. Simpson's blood drops at the various locations are attributed to a cut on his hands that he'd failed to explain. 4. Hairs consistent with that of Simpson were found on a cap at Brown's residence, and hairs consistent with that of Simpson were found on Ron Goldman's shirt. If this case were to be heard in 2022, Simpson would have, solely on the forensic evidence, been convicted and served life for the 2 senseless and brutal murders that were committed that night. Reason number 5. If the glove fits. The most shocking moment of the trial was when defense lawyer Johnny Cochran put the gloves worn by the killer on Simpson and they did not fit. 2 theories have been put forward for this. And although we might never learn the truth, there still is the question of Simpson's blood being on them. One of the former prosecutors has said that Cochran had torn the lining of the gloves so that Simpson could dramatically punch out his fingers, making the gloves look as if they didn't fit on his hands. I think Johnny tore the lining so that OJ's fingers couldn't go all the way up into the glove, he said. This and the fact that he was wearing latex gloves would make the gloves too small for Simpson's hands. Simpson had been taking arthritis medicine for years to combat the condition he acquired from decades of playing football. Simpson had stopped taking his medication 2 weeks before the case. Stopping medication of this sort would have caused his hands to swell and not fit the gloves. Nicole Brown bought pairs of Aries Light XL gloves in 1990 at Bloomingdale's, and Simpson wore Aries Light gloves from 1990 to June 1994. The evidence we have put forward here is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to OJ Simpson's guilt. His brazen statements and erratic behavior displayed before and after the trial showed the world that he thought he was indestructible. On October 3, 2008, exactly 13 years after he was acquitted of the murders of his ex-wife Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman, Simpson was found guilty on 12 charges related to armed robbery and was sentenced to 33 years in jail, for which he served 9. Thank you for watching Bad Things. Hit the subscribe button, like button, and notification bell, and share our channel for our up-and-coming true crime videos.